Construction blowouts. They're expensive, right?
Absolutely.
Today I've got Nelvin from Buildi here to tell us about all the things that can go wrong with building a house and how to make them right so you can have a stress-free build. Let's jump right in. So today we're going to go through all the different ways that your house's budget can blow out when you're building and all the ways to avoid them. So Nelvin's going to take us through his top 5 ways of avoiding budget blowouts and how to save you thousands. All right, Nelvin, tell us about due diligence. Like, what does that even mean on vacant land and how it can actually save you from even starting?
Vacant land due diligence is a really important step in the building process. Essentially, what you have to do is understand a whole variety of different factors with regards to the block of land that might not necessarily be important when transacting, but are going to become super important when you go to build. Now, those things are things like soil tests, things like, what sort of vegetation you've got on your block, what's the impact of things like acoustics, what's the impact on things like wind rating, what's the impact on things like bushfire rating, and how are they going to impact your cost when you go to build.
Yeah, I had a client recently that had just an old gum tree in their backyard and they thought they could just get rid of it, put a pool in there and it'd be all sweet. But the council said they couldn't, it was protected. And I'm sure you'd see that all the time. So doing your due diligence up front can really help you before you even get there, know what you can and can't do. All right, Nelvin, so when I'm doing my due diligence on a block, before I start building, what are some questions that I should ask the agent or what are some things I should do?
The key things you need to ask your agent is things like bushfire overlay, flood overlay, and acoustics. Most agents should have these reports available at the time of sale. Now, if they don't, then you do have access to be able to do reports through the council website, also through a couple of third-party agencies who will give you all of that information to be able to make an informed decision.
So the second biggest blowout can be from the soil. Why is that? Why do you need to do that?
Look, the soil is a fundamental aspect of the construction. Your foundation and your home and the way you build that home is going to be dependent on the quality of soil you have. Now, if you've got a poor quality of soil, it means that the builder's going to have to put a lot more assurance in your home, and the byproduct of that is that your costs are going to go up. If you understand what the quality of the soil is at the point of transacting, you're certainly going to prevent costs from blowing out when you go through the build side of things. We had a client out in Carindale who purchased a block of land, and once we did a soil test, we realized that there was an old swimming pool in the backyard which had been just filled with rubble. Soil pushed over the top of it. Had we not done that soil test, the client would have had an unexpected cost blowout of $30,000. Now, fortunately, we did that, and the result of that was the client was able to make an informed decision whether or not to buy that block of land or whether to pass it on.
Or they could get a free swimming pool.
Or a free swimming pool.
So the third cause for big cost blowouts are the building contracts, right? So what are some differences and things you need to look out for when you're signing a building contract?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of key things to be aware of is the difference between what a quote is and what a fixed price building contract is. The reason why that's important is really around the variables post signing the contract. With a fixed price building contract, there's a lot less variables once you've committed. With a quote, there's a lot of hypotheticals. So there's a lot of things that maybe the builder might not have gone out and priced up specifically, which is going to be included in a fixed price building contract. So from an assurance perspective, it's certainly better to look at getting a fixed price building contract from your builder because that's going to protect you. That's going to mean that those variables that can potentially get pushed out are going to be minimized.
And I guess an example of that is the soil, because they might give you a quote assuming it's M class or it's normal soil, and then if it's got a swimming pool in the backyard, that quote might blow out by 50 or 100 grand and cost you a bunch of extra money.
It's important to provide the builder with the soil test when you're asking for a quote. And the reason is, then there's no ambiguity, there's a level of clarity, and hey, if you've got a swimming pool in the backyard that's been filled in, then he can price for it. And you're gonna know exactly where you stand before you commit into a relationship with the builder.
So tip number 4 to prevent cost blowouts is keep some of the provisional sums to a minimum. So what does that even mean and what does it do?
Absolutely. Look, provisional sums are going to be part of every contract. Essentially, in a nutshell, what a provisional sum is a figure that's put into your contract where the builder doesn't know what the outcome is going to be unless he starts the project. Example is if they start digging on your particular block of land and there's rock underneath the soil, which wasn't picked up in the soil test, that then becomes a provisional cost. According to the governing bodies, the provisional sum in any given contract cannot exceed 20% of the contract value. If you've got a contract for $500,000, 20% is still a very, very big chunk of money. What you want to do is you want to be in a position where you're giving the builder as much information as possible that you can keep those provisional costs to an absolute minimum.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, so tip number 5 is be clear from the start. I guess like they say change is good at a holiday. Like, does that not count with building?
Look, unfortunately not. So it's, if anything, it's the opposite. With variations, they can be very costly through the building process. If you don't have the level of clarity at the beginning, there's a potential that those variations are gonna end up getting marked up after you've signed the contract. And that is a problem. The way to avoid this is go slow at the start, take your time, find out exactly what you wanna get in your home. And then once you've got a really clear picture of how everything's gonna look, then you transact with the builder. You get a comprehensive understanding of what you're gonna get. What this prevents is chopping and changing midway through the build is always gonna attract a premium that essentially is costs that you might not necessarily have factored into your build at the start. The other aspect is that it might not potentially be something that you're gonna get financed, which is an additional problem. In summary, slow is fast. Invest the time in understanding what you want so that it prevents cost blowouts through the process.
Nice. Nice.
All right, that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to hit up Nelvin, where do we find you?
Website's www.buildi.com.au.
Yeah, so if you want any help from Nelvin, hit him up. I'll also include links below. But that's it for today, guys. If you like the video, like and subscribe below. Otherwise, see you next time.